Live from Lincoln Center is also made possible by grants from the Robert Wood Johnson Jr. Charitable Trust, the Fan Fox and Leslie R. Samuels Foundation, and the National Endowment for the Arts.
Live from Lincoln Center, another in the series of live broadcasts from the stages of Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts in New York City. This is Martin Bookspan. Tonight, the New York Philharmonic, under the direction of Maestro Kurt Masur, performs a rarely heard masterpiece, Debussy's The Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian. Soprano Maria Ewing will narrate the work. The soprano soloist is Elizabeth Norberg Schultz, with mezzo-sopranos Nancy Malsby and Mary Ann McCormick, and the renowned Westminster Symphonic Choir. Miss Ewing will open tonight's program with another seldom performed work, Lament of Ariadne, a version by Karl Orff of a piece by Claudio Monteverdi. This concert is being broadcast live from Avery Fisher Hall. Now, backstage, here is our host, Hugh Downs.
Good evening and welcome. It's a chilly evening here in New York City, and Avery Fisher Hall is filling up with an audience of music lovers who have braved traffic and subways and weather to get here. Their troubles, however, may be just beginning, because the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian is the main subject of tonight's program. Now, modern life may have its trials and tribulations, but I think Saint Sebastian can still teach us all a thing or two about true suffering. Fortunately for us, the dramatic story of this saint's martyrdom has inspired great art, and Claude Debussy's choral masterwork is just one example. Although it's rarely performed, it has important champions. Maestro Kurt Masur is one of them, and tonight's performance is the fulfillment of a long-held dream of his. Tonight, the New York Philharmonic will be joined by the Westminster Symphonic Choir and by soprano Maria Ewing, who will narrate the piece. Now add to this a stellar lineup of soloists, and you have the kind of all-out effort that we normally reserve for popular forms such as Handel's Messiah. Well, tonight we're stepping out of the smaller circle of familiar masterworks. You know, sometimes it is hard to hear a piece of music for the first time, and this audience now filling the hall is in for a new musical experience with the New York Philharmonic and Kurt Masur. And it's new in more than one way. And Kurt Masur is near here. We have time for just a moment before we start. If you come in, Maestro, I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about this. Tell me, first of all, why you chose these two things, the Ariadne with Monteverdi and Orff, and the Martyrdom of Saint Sebastian.
I believe that at first this is a fate of two persons of our times. In one case with Saint Sebastian, it was around 300 years after Jesus Christ died, where the Christians still were punished in Rome because they wanted to keep their old gods, and they feared the power of Christianity. And Saint Sebastian was one of those who were brave enough to say, I am a Christian, I believe in that, and he was punished for that. And you know, in every gallery you see pictures of him.
Sure,
with arrows, yes. Right. So he was shot by his own soldiers who didn't want to do that. And to do the other piece is very interesting because Monteverdi's music and the style of this time was composed in the year 1608, was sometimes used by Debussy to describe the kind of old musical style. So if you find here in this piece different music, you find very often music which tries to use a style of that time, of the early music, very, very old music, because Debussy has studied a lot of these pieces also. And at the other end, of course, very typical French Debussy style music also.
Now, what did Orff bring to that piece?
Orff made it possible that we perform it because the instrumentation was lost. And unfortunately, not the whole opera existed. Only this Lamento of Ariadne exists, And Orff made it possible that we can play it now in the concert hall because of his instrumentation.
Now, these are both relatively unfamiliar works. Why are they not more in the standard repertoire?
I believe because at first the Orff to bring it together with other pieces is very often difficult. And I think that this connection is really outstanding because it brings us back to the time of the Greek gods, of the old history, of the Argonauts, what happened on the and I believe that, at the other hand, here this fight between the people who believe in the god of fear or believed in their own gods against the Christianity was very close to that time also.
Well, we're anxious to hear both pieces. It looks like a stunning program ahead of us.
It's great music, and therefore I do it at least.
Terrific. We look forward to that. I know I'll release you to get things going, and we'll talk again after the first.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And as you saw in the background, Concertmaster Glenn Dicterow was making his appearance. Here he is standing before his colleagues in the Philharmonic. And in a few moments, our concert will begin with the Orff version of the Lament of Ariadne by Claudio Monteverdi. And I'd like to remind you that you can now visit the Live from Lincoln Center website at PBS Online. And that's www.pbs.org. Maestro Masur mentioned the orchestration that Orff has devised for this, and let me quickly tell you that it consists of 3 flutes, 2 oboes and English horn, 2 basset horns and bass clarinet, bassoon and contrabassoon, 3 trombones, timpani, and strings. And along with Maestro Kurt Masur, Maria Ewing has made her entrance for the performance of the Orff version of Ariadne's Lament by Claudio Monteverdi.
Nimm von mir die Reue und alle meine Träume.